This call is now being recorded.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what can you see?
Ma'am,
Unmute
molecular
yourself.
basis of
Molecular
inheritance.
basis of
Right,
inheritance.
right. Yes, yes. So we are going to start this new chapter, that is fourth one, molecular basis of inheritance. Keep your textbook, notebook ready. Now we will begin with this. See, inheritance we have learned in the last chapter. Whatever the characters are passed on to the next generation, that is inherited, that we have learned with different Mendel's experiments and so many Mendelian laws, as well as so many other along with the Mendel's laws we studied so many other things like multiple alleles and all deviations of Mendelian laws, etc. Now today in this chapter, what we are going to study is on the molecular basis how this is inherited and what is that which is inherited, what exactly it is. So previously it was thought that proteins are the molecules which are transmitted and which are considered to be the genetic basis, which are transmitted from parents to their offsprings as a genetic material. But later on, by the experiments performed by different scientists, it was proved that not protein but DNA is the genetic material. And now to prove that, one by one, we will be discussing all these experiments which are mentioned in your text. See, by the early 1900s, geneticists knew that genes control the inheritance of traits which are located on chromosome. Chemically, chromosomes are mainly composed of DNA and proteins. Initially, most geneticists thought that proteins are large, complex molecules and store information needed to govern cell metabolism. Hence, it was assumed that proteins cause the variations observed within species. But later on, by different experiments performed by different group of scientists, it was proved that not proteins but DNA is the genetic material. The first experiment which we are going to study is by Griffith, that is well known as Griffith's experiment. Frederick Griffith in 1928, a British medical officer, Frederick Griffith performed an experiment on bacterium Streptococcus pneumoniae that causes pneumonia in humans and other animals. Griffith used two strains or two genetic varieties of Streptococcus to find a cure for pneumonia, which was a common cause of death at that time. Now, what are the two strains? I'll repeat this again. Griffith, he observed, he was a medical officer, and he observed that time the common cause of death was pneumonia. So he was studying that what is the reason, and he know that the bacterium that is Streptococcus pneumoniae that is responsible for this disease, that is pneumonia. And he found or he used for his experiment two strains of Streptococcus pneumoniae. One strain is considered to be virulent and the other one as non-virulent. Means what one was responsible for causing pneumonia and another was not responsible for the death of the person. So he used two varieties of Streptococcus pneumonia. Now what are these two strains or varieties? As I told you, virulent and non-virulent. One is virulent, the other is non-virulent. How was the virulent? Virulent means which was responsible for causing the disease, that is pneumonia. Then the strain was smooth, pathogenic, and encapsulated, and that is called as S type of strain. You have to just remember what are these two strains. One is S strain. That S stands for smooth strain. Why it is smooth? Because that is covered by a capsule. So capsulated. That's why this is smooth. And that is pathogenic. That means causing a disease. So that is called as virulent. So virulent strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae is smooth. That is called as S type. Whereas another strain is considered to be non-virulent, that is rough strain, that is non-pathogenic and non-capsulated. That means that strain was not covered by a capsule. So it was rough. It was not smooth. And so it was not virulent. That means non-pathogenic, not causing any disease. So non-virulent. And that as it is having no cover, it was not smooth capsule, so non-capsulated, so it was rough, so its structure was rough, so that is called as R strain. Remember now these two strains he used. One is virulent, that is S strain. The other is non-virulent, that is R strain. And I told you now what is S and what is R. Now in his experiment, he performed his experiment in 4 steps. What are these 4 steps? In the first step, what he did, R strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae, he injected in mice. He used mice for his experiment. Okay, mice was the experimental animal. Mouse was the experimental animal, and what he did, R strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae, he injected in mice, and he found that they were survived. That means no pneumonia was observed and there was no death of these mice. They were all survived. Then what he did in the second step, he injected S strain, that means smooth strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae to mice, and in this experiment he observed that these mice were suffering by pneumonia, which resulted into the death of the mice. So the death of the mice was observed when he injected S strain to mice. Then in the third experiment, what he did, the S strain only, S is that is smooth virulent strain. He used the same strain, but what he did, he heated that strain to kill that surface, which is smooth capsule. That means capsule was ruptured. So it is called as heat killed. So he heated S strain and killed or destroyed the structure of capsule. That is called as heat killed S strain. So what he did, he injected heat killed S strain to of Streptococcus pneumoniae, injected to the mice, and then he found there was no pneumonia observed in these mice, and these mice were survived. There was no death of the mice. So this is his third step. Now what he did, the next step of his experiment, he mixed these two strains. We switch these two strains, that is the S strain, which is heat killed, means the cover was destructed, capsule was destructed, that is heat killed S strain, which he used in the third step, and plus first strain, that is the R strain. What he used in the first step, that is R strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae. That is also non-virulent, and when this S strain was heat killed, that also is non-virulent, means in both the steps, that is the first and the third step, there was no pneumonia observed in the mice and mice were survived, right? So he mixed these two strains, heat killed S strain and R strain of Streptococcus pneumoniae, and injected to mice. Then what was expected, when R itself is non-virulent, heat killed S strain was also non-virulent as the capsule was removed. But when these two were mixed, then what he observed and injected to the mice were died, causing pneumonia. There was pneumonia observed in those mice, and there was death of the mice, to which this mixture of heat killed S strain and R strain was injected. So it was surprising. Actually, the expected result was no pneumonia and mice were expected to be alive. There was no death of the mice expected when these two strains were mixed, as R is non-virulent and heat killed S also had become non-virulent. But surprisingly, he observed the mixture of these two non-virulent strains got converted into virulent, causing the death of the mice because of pneumonia. And then he concluded that the genetic material from heat killed S strain bacterium had changed the living strain, that is R bacterium, strain R bacterium, into strain S bacterium. Why it is called as heat killed S strain got changed into living R strain? Because R strain was used as it is, as it is living, but it was heat killed, so disturbing the nature, so it is considered to be non-living. As it is heated, its natural form is destructed, so it is considered to be non-living. So what has happened according to the experiment? What he concluded, that there is something, that is the genetic material, which heat killed S strain converted or changed this living R strain into S strain. So Griffith named it as transforming principle for that changing phenomena. What is changed? This R strain, that is the living strain, that is non-virulent, but it got changed into virulent like S strain. So there is something which is transformed from this S strain, which is responsible for changing this non-virulent R strain into virulent S strain. And Griffith named it as transforming principle. But still, he could not prove what exactly that is. So the in the another experiment performed by Avery, McLeod, and McCarty, they proved to some extent that DNA is the genetic material. Now, what is that experiment we will discuss? Avery, McLeod, and McCarty first evidenced to prove the DNA is genetic material, that is the transforming principle, through the experiments. Now, what they did, they purified DNA, RNA, proteins, its enzymes, and other materials from the cell-free extract of S cell strain and mixed with heat-killed S strain and R cells separately to confirm which one could transform living R cell into S cell. And from their experiment, they found that only DNA was able to transform harmless strain R into deadly strain S. Now, what they did, we will see in this step. It will be easier for you to understand. See, what did they do in the same experiment which was performed by Griffith? The next step of that experiment, what they did, they purified DNA, RNA, proteins, and other materials from that extract, cell-free extract of S cell strain, and then mixed with heat-killed S strain and R cells separately. And then they found their result. What is their result? What are the steps? We'll see. Proteins were separated. In the proteins, what they did do heat killed S strain plus R strain, means which Griffith used in his fourth step, heat killed S strain plus R strain. Then when proteins were treated or they were mixed with this strain, this mixture, there was no transformation. Try to understand. This heat killed S strain and R strain Griffith used in his fourth step. So this mixture was added to the proteins which these Avery McLeod and McCarthy separated from the cells, and then there was no transformation, there was no change as it was observed, right? Means there was no death of the mice. Then they that separated RNA from the cells, cell-free extract, they mixed with the same mixture. There also they did not observe any transformation. But when that separated DNA, that purified DNA was mixed with this heat-killed S strain and R strain, then they observed transformation. That was that R strain, which is non-virulent, that got transformed into S strain, that is the virulent. That means what? DNA is responsible for this transformation of R strain into S strain. To prove that, again, one more step they added. What they did, the DNA they treated with the DNase. DNase means what? Enzyme which destructs DNA. When ASE is added at the end, that is considered to be the enzyme, right? So DNase, RNase, protease, these are all enzymes. Protease means what? Which destructs, which catalyzes proteins, means destructs its nature. RNAs, which work on RNA, catalyzes RNA. DNAs, which work on DNA, catalyzes DNA. That means destruction of its natural form. That is what? Enzymatic action, right? So when this DNA was treated with DNA, same DNA, in the third step, you try to understand, in the third step, when the DNA was added to the mixture, there was transformation. But in the same additional step they did perform in their experiment, Avery McLeod and McCarthy, to prove that DNA is the material which is responsible for this transformation. What they did, they added DNase to that material which they purified, that purified DNA, they added the DNase, and then they added this mixture. DNA, what is the role of DNase? DNase work on DNA, destroys its natural form, destruction that catalyzes DNA. So then when that DNA was catalyzed, there was no transformation observed. So this is the additional step they could perform and prove that DNA is responsible for this transformation. That means what? DNA is the genetic material. But still, some of the everyone was not accepting this experiment and not ready to accept that DNA only is the genetic material. So one more experiment performed by Hershey and Chase could prove very clearly that DNA only is the genetic material. For their experiment, what they did, they used bacteriophages. They worked on bacteriophages which are composed of DNA and protein. Now, if you have learned the structure of bacteriophage, last year we have learned it, if you remember. That is the very simplest structure. Viruses which infect bacteria, right? So they are bacteriophages with very simplest structure, that they have the protein coat outside and the core at the center, they have the genetic material in the form of either DNA or RNA. So very simpler form of structure these bacteriophages are having. So Hershey and Chase experimented on bacteriophages which are made up of DNA and protein. They used radioactive phosphorus, that is P32, in the medium for some viruses, and radioactive sulfur, that is S35, for some others. Now, everyone, if you know the chemical nature of proteins and DNAs, you must be knowing that proteins, they contain sulfur and not phosphorus, whereas DNA contain only phosphorus and not sulfur. You understand this? Means what? if you learn, if you studied the structure of proteins, what they are made up of, amino acids, what the amino acid contain, if last year you have learned, if you remember. And same way DNA, what are they made up of? Nucleotides. Then what the nucleotides are made up of, right? If you remember, nucleotides, all the structure of DNA and RNA also we have learned, right? That is basic structure of nucleotide as the 5 carbon pentose sugar. Then nucleic, to that nitrogen bases, either purines or pyrimidines. And the third component is phosphates, right, in the form of phosphate. So this is the basic structure, if you remember. So you need to remember that DNA contain only phosphorus and not sulfur, whereas proteins contain only sulfur and not phosphorus. So this is very sure. And you know why radioactive? Not the normal phosphorus, but radioactive phosphorus as well as radioactive sulfur was used, as they are considered to be heavy isotopes, right? These are heavy isotopes. So bacteriophage, which is made up of protein coat and DNA core, as I told you. Bacteriophage is made up of protein coat and DNA core. Means outside the coat is made up of protein and inside the core is made up of genetic material, either DNA or RNA. Here we are using DNA, right? So viruses with heavy isotope of phosphorus, their DNA will be radioactive DNA. Why radioactive DNA? Because DNA core, that is viruses, two types of viruses will be there. One type will be with radioactive DNA, where DNA will be of P32 type, but the protein will be of normal, not 35 type of protein. 35S is not seen. So this is called as radioactive DNA. And viruses labeled as S35 will be having radioactive protein. That means protein will be of S35, but the DNA will be normal. Now you understand why this is, because of this first line, what I am telling, that is bacteriophages are made up of protein coat and DNA core. If viruses are grown on radioactive medium with phosphorus as its heavy isotope, that means P32, that in that case, that DNA only will be seen as radioactive. That means core will be only what? Of radioactive type. And as you know that protein coat is outside, that will be normal. So normal protein coat, that means it will be not of heavy type of protein coat, only the normal protein, means not S type of protein, that is of 35S. That means the heavy isotope will not be observed in this first case of viruses. Whereas in the second type of viruses, that is S35, that means radioactive protein, the outer coat, that will be radioactive, and the inner material, that is the core, that DNA will be normal. Coat will be radioactive and core will be normal, because normal DNA is present inside at the center, that is the core, right? So radioactive phages were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria grown on the medium containing normal phosphorus and sulfur. Now try to understand why this is. See, when this is very clear that as bacteriophages are made up of protein coat and DNA, two types of bacteriophages were used, where two types of isotopes, that is one of phosphorus and other was sulfur, were used. And these radioactive phages, that means two types of phages. Phages means what? Which infect bacteria, viruses which infect bacteria. Now these viruses, these both the types of viruses, that means viruses of P32 type and viruses of S35 type, they were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria. So they are bacteriophages, right? So they were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria, Escherichia coli bacteria, grown on the medium containing normal P and S. Means these bacteria were grown on the normal medium with the normal phosphorus and normal sulfur. They were not having any heavy isotope. That means radioactive material was not there in the medium. But the E. coli bacteria where they were growing on the medium, that was a normal phosphorus and sulfur. The medium was containing normal phosphorus and sulfur. Then after the growth of these bacteria, what they did, they centrifuged this material separately. Then after the centrifugation, centrifuge means what is done in the centrifugation, there is a centrifuge machine. Okay, all these are machineries you might not have seen, but for the higher studies these are used. That centrifuge is nothing but a tube itself with a specific tube is there, and in that machine, that tube where which we can add any material in the tube, and that is rotated at a particular speed, so that with that speed, whatever the material we are taking inside the tube, the contents get separated because of that speed. Okay, if any material which we are using, any cell, suppose some cells, the medium or that material is containing in that centrifuge tube is, suppose that is containing some type of cells, then what happens, because of that speed, the parts get separated. So that is the reason why this centrifugation is done. Okay, centrifugation is meant at the center, that is what, nothing but a tube containing the material that is rotated with a very high speed. And because of that speed, that gets rotated and centrifuge, that is called a centrifugation. So that because of that speed, what happens, the contents or the parts of that material get separated. So when these bacteriophages, that means which are grown, which are infected, that means which are allowed, the radiophages, that is radioactive phages, both the types were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria. They were first grown on the medium containing normal phosphorus and sulfur, and then after that, that material they were centrifuged. So after the centrifugation, what happens? These two contents get separated. Now, what are the contents of the bacteriophages? As you know, as I told you, that is the protein coat and DNA core. So bacteriophages, now I have used this color, you try to understand. This is radioactive color. So that's why I have used this centrifugation. They get separated. Bacteriophages, two types, P32, that is with the phosphorus heavy isotope, that is 32, that is DNA that was observed to be radioactive, right? But the bacteriophage with heavy isotope, that is S35, the DNA was observed to be normal. Now try to understand what exactly is this. After the centrifugation, when these two parts, that as protein coat and DNA, were separated, as I told you, centrifugation is done for this process, this thing only. That is the purpose, that parts get separated. So bacteriophage got separated into two parts, that is the protein part and the core part. So that is the coat part and the core part. And as you know, coat part is made up of protein and the core part is made up of DNA. So what they observed, DNA was radioactive, but not the protein, in which case where bacteriophages of P32 were centrifuged. What was observed after the centrifugation? That as the bacteriophages were the bacteria are infected, that is phages, these radioactive phages were allowed to infect bacteria. What was observed in the core that is transformed? That is only DNA. And that's why after the centrifugation, what is observed? Only DNA which is radioactive. That means what? What is infected, what is injected, and what is infected and what is transformed? That is the DNA. And that's why I've shown it in the different color, that is the radioactive color. So after the centrifugation, as the protein part was removed, got separated, and what was observed in these E. coli was only DNA which was radioactive. And what is why this radioactive DNA was observed? Because these radioactive phages were allowed to infect E. coli. So that's why it was observed that infected material is what? The transformed material is what? DNA. Because this only is observed. DNA is only the radioactive type of DNA observed. And in case of bacteriophage with heavy isotope of sulfur, that is S35, the DNA was normal. So from this experiment, proteins from the viruses did not enter bacteria. They could prove now that proteins from the viruses did not enter bacteria. DNA is therefore the genetic material that is passed from virus to bacteria. I hope you have understood this. I'll repeat this part again if you are not understood, because you may not understand, some of you, but most of you, I hope you have understood that why these two types of isotopes were considered, because of the structure of bacteriophage. What is the structure of bacteriophage? Protein coat and DNA coat. Protein coat, as proteins are made up, they contain only sulfur. That protein coat was radioactive with heavy isotope of sulfur. DNA is the core. So this DNA of heavy isotope of phosphorus, so only core will be radioactive. So after the centrifugation, when these bacteriophages, means radioactive phages, were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria, then what was observed? Then E. coli was grown on the normal medium containing normal phosphorus and sulfur. So there was no any radioactive material inside E. coli, as it was growing on the normal medium. But when it was observed, when this E. coli this medium, this bacteria were centrifuged, then what was observed? Only bacteriophage where radioactive DNA was the radioactive. Actually, E. coli, which was growing on normal medium, was having its own DNA normal. But when it was observed DNA as a radioactive, that means from where it has been transformed, that from the viruses. So only this is the DNA which is transformed, which is transported, which is transformed or infected or entered, transformed into E. coli, is the DNA material. So the DNA is the genetic material. And bacteriophages with heavy isotope of sulfur, they were having normal DNA. They were not showing any radioactive DNA. Only those with heavy isotope of phosphorus, that DNA was observed. Only heavy DNA with the phosphorus as heavy isotope were observed in this E. coli. That means what? DNA is the genetic material which is passed from virus to bacteria. This is what the third experiment which can prove that DNA is the genetic material. I hope you have understood. Now we'll go to the next part and then we'll again revise in the last 10 minutes. DNA packaging. That means how the DNA is packed. Length of DNA double helix molecule in a typical mammalian cell is approximately 2.2 meters. Approximate size of a typical nucleus is 10 raised to minus 6 meter. Then how is long, or how this long DNA molecule can be then accommodated in such a small nucleus? Isn't it wondering? It therefore must be condensed, coiled, and supercoiled to fit inside such a small nucleus. See, the length of the DNA double helix is 2.2 meters, and the size of the nucleus, typical nucleus, is approximately 10 raised to minus 6 meters. See, then how is it possible? How isn't it wondering that such a long DNA is accommodated in such a small nucleus? That means what should be the structure? So that means it must be condensed, coiled, and supercoiled so that it can fit in such a small nucleus. So, how this packaging is observed in prokaryotes? In prokaryotes, the nucleoid is small, circular, highly folded, naked ring of DNA, which is 1100 micron long in perimeter. In prokaryotes and in eukaryotes, the packaging is little different. Here, what we call as a genetic material is nucleoid in eukaryotes, prokaryotes, whereas we call nucleus in eukaryotes. In prokaryotes, that is called as nucleoid, which is small, circular, highly folded, naked ring of DNA, which is 1100 micron long in perimeter. Prokaryotic cells lack a nuclear membrane and defined nucleus, even though DNA is not scattered throughout the cell. Though the DNA in the prokaryotes is not having any membrane, like nuclear membrane observed in eukaryotes, but this DNA is also not scattered throughout the cell. It is also arranged in such a way that it gives the appearance of the genetic material separately, right? DNA being negatively charged is held with some proteins having positive charges in a region termed as nucleoid. DNA is negatively charged, whereas proteins, they are with positive charge, and that region is considered or termed as nucleoid in case of prokaryotes. The DNA in nucleoid is organized in large loops held by proteins. So DNA, which is negatively charged, is held, organized by positively large loops called, that is called as, these are proteins. Now we will see, look at this diagram, how this is observed. This is DNA package in prokaryotes. See, this is in the first diagram, you can see the circular unfolded chromosome, which shows the length of 350 microns. Then this, in the second diagram, it is the folded structure of chromosome, which shows 40 to 50 loops with 30 micron, right? The diameter, that RNA. Then when it is supercoiled, in the next third diagram, you can see supercoiled structure of folded chromosome, where each loop shows few more folds, that is only 2 micron length, right? So each loop is independently supercoiled. See, this is the simpler circular model. Then when it is folded, it shows the appearance of a flower. Then each petal, suppose if you consider each loop as a petal, that each loop is again coiled, that is called as supercoiled model, right? That is the supercoiled folded structure of chromosome, and each loop is independently supercoiled. Okay, so this is partially uncoiled chromosome in this structure, in this diagram. This is called as nicked DNA. When it is nicked at some point, you can see here, this is the normal loop just without any supercoils and remaining as supercoiled. Each loop is again coiled. This is partial DNA's digestion and partial RNA's digestion. Why partial? Because this is partially digested. DNAs, as I told you, DNAs, RNAs, protease, these are the enzymes which digest that particular substance, right? So RNAs digest RNA, DNAs digest DNA. Why partial? because you can't see the entire structure as separated or digested, but only two loops in this case, whereas here also only one loop is getting separated, digested, so that's why its structure only is observed in only one loop. So this is about the DNA packaging in prokaryotes. Now see, this is the nucleus in the normal eukaryotic cell. This is the normal eukaryotic cell. This is the nuclear membrane, and this is the nucleus, and you can see these chromosomes, and these are scattered in the nucleus. And a single chromosome, if you see this in the last chapter, we have learned the structure of chromosome also. These two chromatids join at one point, and these are the arms, and depending on the location of the centromere, these are also of different types. So this is a single chromosome, it is shown. Then this chromosome also, see how much this is coiled and supercoiled. So if you see this one arm itself, this is the DNA, structure of DNA, and on this DNA, what that location that is called as genes are present, right? So this is what the structure of DNA in eukaryotes. This is the eukaryotic nucleus. So this is having nuclear membrane, which contains nucleoplasm, which shows the presence of nucleolus as well as this genetic material in the form of DNAs, that means these chromosomes. And the single chromosome, how it shows here the structure. This structure, the arm, a single arm, a small part also, you can see how it is folded, coiled, super coiled structure, nature. And this is the just a small part of this arm, that is which contains this DNA. And on this DNA, small parts which are considered to be called as genes responsible for a particular character. This is what eukaryotic DNA. Now this arrangement of DNA in eukaryotic chromosomes, we'll just see eukaryotes. The DNA is arranged around a set of positively charged basic proteins. These proteins, you remember, DNA is negatively charged and proteins are positively charged, right? So DNA is wrapped by, that is surrounded around it, that is positively charged proteins. And in eukaryotes, these proteins are called as histones. There are two types of proteins, histones and non-histone proteins. Histones are organized to form a unit of 8 molecules called histone octamer. 8, so octamer. And these are the proteins. Histones are a type of proteins. Okay. The negatively charged DNA is wrapped around positively charged histone octamer to form a structure called nucleosome. Now I'll show you this in the diagram. What is nucleosome? Octam is 8. 8 protein molecules. There are 4 types of protein molecules. H represents histone. H1, H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. These are the 4 types. Now H1 role I will tell you later. So octamer is made up of 8 molecules of histone proteins. And what are these 8 molecules? 2 molecules of one type. Now H2A, these are the 2 molecules of H2A, 2 molecules of H2B, 2 molecules of H3 and 2 molecules of H4. So these are the 4 types, total 8 molecules, because each type 2 molecules of each type. So these are 8 molecules of proteins. In this way, these are the proteins of type H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. So total 8 proteins. These are wrapped, these 8 molecules, octamer, that is called as octamer. These are positively charged, proteins are positively charged. It's wrapped by, that means surrounded by, right? Wrapped by the length of this DNA. What you can see in this red color, that is the DNA molecule. Okay. And these H1, you can see that there are 2 layers, or that these are wrapped by these 2 layers of DNA where these two H1 where it is working at the joint of entry and exit of this wrapping, right? So this is called as H1 histone. The role of H1 histone. This is the fifth type of protein. This is the first H1 type of protein. This is also a protein which joins the DNA in such a way that when it is starting wrapping at this point and this wrap is totally when it is wrapped, it exits. So at that point it joins. This is what H1 histone type of protein. So this is the octamer of histone. So 5 types of proteins though are present. Actually, octamer is made up of 2 molecules of each type, that is H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. And when that octamer is wrapped by the DNA molecule, at the entry and exit at that points it joins. That is, it works, H1 histone type of protein. So this is the first or the fifth category of histone, that is histone type of protein. So this is the octamer of histone and that is called as nucleosome. This is called as nucleosome. So a typical nucleosome contains 200 base pairs of DNA helix. Nucleosome constitute the repeating unit of structure in nucleus called chromatin. That the nucleosome, that is nucleosomes constitute the repeating unit of structure in nucleus called chromatin. The nucleosome in chromatin are seen as beads on string structure under electron microscope. Now this is what the structure, you can see DNA in eukaryotic chromosome. See, this is what these are all. This is the singular one. This is single nucleosome. That means this is the octamer of protein wrapped by 2 layers. Two times this is wrapped, right? 2 layers of DNA. So this is the H1 which joins the 2 consecutive octamers. So this is the H1. This is one octamer. This is another octamer. This is third octamer. This is fourth octamer. Now in this case, you can see here how this 2 nucleosomes are joined to each other by H1 protein, whereas H2A, H2B, H3 and H4, they are made up, they form the octamer, and these octamers, how they join to form this structure, right? So this is the structure, how it looks then, how this structure looks under electron microscope, like this. That is beads on a string, isn't it? If you see, this is the string and these are the beads. So these octamers, this is the string, that means the DNA molecule, that is which also contains H1, and H1 is what? Nothing but which connects to 2 nucleosomes. And this is one nucleosome, this is another nucleosome, this is third nucleosome. And how it looks, this is the DNA strand, that is what? The string, and these octamers, they are like beads, so it looks like beads on a string. So under electron microscope, how it looks? That chromatin showing beads on string. These are nothing but the chromatins. When they are joined, this is the chromatin. So how they look? They look like the beads on string. Now what is euchromatin and all, that we will discuss in the next lecture.
Good morning, madam.